The restaurant lights were dim, the chandeliers dripping in golden warmth that barely reached the trembling girl on her knees. Her hands pressed against the cold marble floor, her cheeks flushed with humiliation as laughter echoed around her. The CEO of the company that owned half the city, Alan Voss, leaned back in his chair, his lips curled into a cruel smile. "If you want your job, sweetheart," he said, "then crawl." Her name was Lena Hale, and that night the world saw her as nothing more than a fragile nobody, a new waitress desperate for her first paycheck, crawling across the polished floor while a table of wealthy executives mocked her. But what no one saw was the storm in her eyes. Because the next day, that same girl would bring Alan Voss's $2 billion empire crashing to the ground. If you like this powerful title and the way this story begins, then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Exposed Tales, and tell us in the comments, from where in the world are you watching this video? Lena had started working at the Silver Ember only 2 days before the incident. She had just moved back to New York after her mother's death, carrying nothing but an old suitcase and a half broken laptop. The job wasn't glamorous, minimum wage, long shifts, rude customers, but it was survival. Alan Voss, the CEO of Voss Industries, wasn't supposed to be there that night. He arrived unannounced, accompanied by his entourage, investors, partners, and models. His reputation preceded him: ruthless, arrogant, untouchable. The staff whispered when he entered. The waiters stood straighter. The manager almost trembled. And then there was Lena, just trying to carry a tray without dropping the glasses that cost more than her rent. When the accident happened, it was small. A single drop of wine splashing onto Alan's cufflink. But his reaction wasn't small. He stood up, cold fury in his eyes, and the room went silent. "On your knees," he said. Lena thought she'd misheard him. But he repeated it louder. "On your knees. Clean it." Everyone watched. No one helped, not even the manager. And so, with her heart pounding and shame burning in her chest, Lena obeyed. She fell to her knees, wiped the floor with her trembling hands, and endured the sound of laughter that would echo in her head all night. When she left that restaurant, tears blurred the city lights. But somewhere inside her, something cracked open, something she didn't know. She had a memory of her late mother's words. "Never let them define your worth. One day, make them remember your name." Lena didn't sleep that night. Instead, she opened her laptop. It was slow, its screen flickering like a candle, but it worked. And that's all she needed. Because what Alan Voss didn't know was that before life had crushed her dreams, Lena Hale had been a data engineer, one of the youngest at a cybersecurity firm that his company had once tried to acquire. She had been brilliant until her mother's illness forced her to quit. But skills like hers don't fade. So she spent the night researching, digging through public records, business filings, hidden contracts. What she found made her blood run cold. Alan's empire wasn't just built on arrogance. It was built on fraud. Shell companies, fake mergers, offshore accounts, money laundering. He thought his wealth made him invincible. He thought no one could see through the layers of lies he'd built. But he hadn't met her. By sunrise, Lena had gathered enough data to ruin him. But revenge wasn't her goal. Not yet. She wanted justice. Real, public justice. The next morning, she walked into the Silver Ember again, not as a waitress, but as a storm. She quit on the spot, leaving her apron on the counter, then walked straight to the offices of an independent journalist she used to know, Jordan Cross, the only reporter who had once believed in her when she was nobody. Jordan's jaw dropped when she placed the USB on his desk. "Lena, where did you get this?" "Let's just say," she replied, her voice steady now, "someone taught me not to crawl anymore." Within 48 hours, the New York Ledger exploded with headlines: Voss Industries under federal investigation for fraud and exploitation. CEO Alan Voss accused of abusing employees and hiding offshore assets. The world turned its gaze on him. The board members panicked. Investors withdrew billions overnight. Stock prices plummeted. Alan's empire, the one he'd spent 20 years building, began to crumble, piece by piece. When reporters finally reached him outside his mansion, he looked pale, trembling, furious. "This is fake, lies!" he screamed into the microphones. But the evidence was undeniable. Every transaction, every offshore account, every hidden secret was laid bare. And as his empire fell, Lena stood across the street from the chaos, her hair blowing in the autumn wind. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just watched the man who made her crawl finally fall to his knees. But Lena didn't stop there. She used the settlement money from the lawsuit that followed, money that the court awarded her for emotional and workplace abuse, to start something new, a foundation called the Rising Voices Initiative, a program to help women who were humiliated, silenced, or abused in their workplaces. Within a year, it grew across the country. Thousands of women got legal aid, mentorship, and second chances, and soon Lena's name became synonymous with strength and dignity. Meanwhile, Alan Voss faced charges for tax fraud, manipulation, and misconduct. The empire he once boasted about was auctioned off piece by piece. As she stood on stage a year later, accepting an award for her advocacy, Lena looked at the crowd, the cameras flashing, her hands shaking not with fear but with gratitude. She began, "A year ago, I was on the floor of a restaurant, crawling because someone told me I wasn't worth standing. But today, I stand here because I learned something powerful. When they push you down, don't stay there. Rise so high that they have to look up to see you again." Her words echoed, raw and real, through the hall. And as the audience stood in applause, tears shimmered in her eyes. If you're still watching and felt Lena's story light a fire in your heart, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Exposed Tales for more stories that reveal the truth behind power and pain. That night, as Lena walked home through the same streets she once cried in, she paused outside the Silver Ember. The lights were still golden, the air still heavy with the scent of wine and money. But something was different now. She wasn't the girl who had crawled. She was the woman who stood, and the world now knew her name. And as she whispered into the quiet night, "Thank you, Mom," a small smile curved her lips. The empire was gone. The pain had passed. But the strength she found in herself, that was forever. Message: no matter how small or broken you feel, remember, the world's cruelty cannot define your worth. Stand up, speak out, and fight back with truth. Because sometimes, the ones who are forced to crawl are the very ones destined to make the world kneel.